and Incineroar. And Connor has a distinct amount of accomplishments as well. Malaysia regional champion for this year, top 16 at Worlds last year. And we also talked about this, that they were a finalist at last year's North American Internats as well. So both Connor and Kenneth are looking for that top spot today.
It's sort of interesting looking at Connor's team as well. We see Mega Gengar there most often paired with Kyogre to try to trap Groudon. On this team going to support Groudon, try to trap Kyogre instead perhaps. Both Landorus and Incineroar on his team to probably use U-turn, try to cycle through, get Gengar on the field at the right time without exposing it to too much damage. I think it's being important for Kenneth to try to be a turn ahead. We don't always see a lot of proactive switching in juniors, but I think playing too slow against this team could be tough. Could easily get in a bunch of bad situations against Mega Gengar and that Shadow Tag ability. So Kenneth may be going to need to play a little faster on the defensive side than we normally see in the junior division to avoid falling behind.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw this a little bit yesterday as well on the main stage, that we have distinct play styles from both of these players. One a little bit more aggressive, one that needs to play a lot more defensively, and that can really change the pace of the game. So it's going to really depend on what those leads are, who can get that edge at the very beginning, and we're about to get started. Looking at that team preview, I'm kind of expecting that we're going to see both restricteds on both players come into the battlefield for this very first game, and we maybe even might see those Mega Pokemon as well.
Yeah, it's a really awkward matchup. I feel like on Kenneth's side, it's like you kind of want to use all 6 Pokemon for various reasons. Matchup,
yeah.
Obviously, you can only pick 4. Tough not to pick the restricted Pokemon. He probably needs to get some form of speed control out, either Yveltal's Tailwind or Trick Room from Stakataka. Togedemaru, the best Pokemon on the team to help enable that, but Fake Out isn't necessarily going to work because of the potential of Psychic Terrain from Tapu Lele, which makes it tempting to bring Tapu Fini. He's going to have to make some sacrifices here. Another thing to keep in mind is the only Pokemon on his team that can learn a move like the U-turn is that Togedemaru. He might want to bring it for that reason, just so we can kind of trade U-turns with Incineroar and Landorus. Otherwise, these Pokemon might just be switching circles around him.
Might be a little bit of a rotating door of Pokemon, but we're ready to get started with this game 1. Connor and Kenneth are going to be battling it out here for the VGC Juniors 2019 Finals at the North American International Championships. And as we get started, we're going to already see some leads here coming out from Connor and Kenneth. Kicking things off, we'll see Yveltal and Stakataka coming to the field. And on the other side of things, we're going to have Landorus and Xerneas.
So a lot of things about this matchup that you probably like if you are on Connor's side of the field. It's Xerneas facing off against Yveltal, so that's a big type advantage. And then Landorus facing off against Stakataka, also a big type advantage. Kenneth potentially needing to make some switches here, but maybe just a good prediction will be enough. It's rough though, just simply 2 attacks would be tough to deal with, and most of the Pokemon in his team aren't going to take these attacks a whole lot better either, so even a switch could be really dangerous. Also, of course, always the threat of Xerneas just using Geomancy and starting to run rampant over this team, so just ignoring it and playing too defensively is also tough too. Really great leads by Connor. He's got a huge advantage to start off this game 1.
Oh, but we're going to be kicking things off in a really big way here. We're not going to see that Geomancy first. It's actually going to be a Z move coming out from the Yveltal. So trying to get out some major damage before it gets threatened by the Xerneas being there on the field. Black Hole Eclipse from Yveltal is going to connect with one of the Pokemon on Connor's side because they aren't protected at the moment. It's going to be that Landorus.
Oh, this could be a big deal. If this picks up a knockout on the Landorus, then Stakataka is going to be free either to attack the Xerneas to use Trick Room. The advantage is swapped now, and Kenneth's in a really good spot.
Kenneth is going to be in a good spot, taking a numbers advantage really early on, but now has to deal with the Geomancy on Connor's side of the field.
And so Xerneas is going to power up, raise its special attack, special defense, and speed by 2 levels, but Kenneth might be okay with that. Stakataka here can either use Trick Room and kind of turn that speed advantage around and make it a disadvantage for Xerneas the next few turns, or just use a powerful Gyro Ball. We do see that Trick Room going up, and now Connor's going to have to play defensively. He's threatening a bunch of potential damage, but actually using those attacks safely is going to be tricky, especially with Kenneth's best Xerneas counter on the other side of the field.
Well, Connor is going to be bringing out Groudon to try to help keep that Xerneas safe here. Groudon is going to Primal Evolve, and we're also going to see a little bit of a terrain change as we get some sunny weather in here.
Yeah, I don't know if the sun is going to be a big difference or not, though it could. You'd expect Kyogre is going to be one of the Pokemon in the back. Maybe try to bring that in order to negate any fire-type attacks. But through the ground-type attacks of Groudon that Kenneth and his stack attack are going to be concerned about here. Groudon's exactly the right Pokemon to bring in to try to negate the advantage the stack attack has on Xerneas. It's not going to be able to survive very long against this Groudon. Also interesting for Kenneth to try to learn, is this Groudon trained to use special attacks? Is it trained to use physical attacks? The way you want to deal with that's a little bit different either way. So still that feeling out process in this game, unless the players perhaps played during Swiss and learned a little bit more.
Well, Stack Attacker doesn't like being in the face of Groudon, so it is going to go back to Kenneth, and Kenneth is going to bring out Kyogre. Now, will reset the weather here, and Kenneth is continuously off on a good foot for this first game.
Yeah, fortune might favor the bold, though. It'll be interesting to see if Xerneas attacks or not. Not really any danger now with Yveltal being the only Pokemon who can potentially attack here, but probably just use Protect to to avoid being hit by a Gyro Ball. This will be a big deal either way.
A lot of potential damage now coming in from Connor's side, and Kyogre is going to take a brunt of that. But actually, Connor is going to protect the Xerneas this turn, just in case a Sucker Punch goes into it. But it's the Groudon that Sucker Punch connects with. Earth Power now will find its mark with the Kyogre, but it doesn't take too much because it's not weak to that move.
Yeah, kind of a money switch by Kenneth there. Could have gone really badly if Xerneas had opted to attack. It doesn't, and he gets Kyogre in relatively for free. Groudon doing pretty good damage with that Earth Power, and again, seeing Earth Power, an indication this Groudon probably trained to use more special attacks. I'd also guess on Kenneth's team, being a little bit more defensively oriented, this Kyogre is probably slower than Groudon is, so it's going to move before either Xerneas or Groudon and Trick Room. But with all these Pokemon in the field, Xerneas can probably attack safely here. You wouldn't expect either of these Pokemon to have something that's going to threaten a huge amount of damage on the Xerneas. So Kenneth improved his board position against the Groudon, but actually still in a lot of danger here. Well,
doesn't want to deal with anything like an Origin Pulse or potentially anything else coming out from the Kyogre, so it will protect itself, and that means that Groudon's going to be pretty safe here. Unfortunately for Xerneas, Xerneas is going to have to take an Origin Pulse, but it takes it on the chin. Connor Xerneas will be here to stick around unless it gets knocked out by this move from the Yveltal, but that's not too much damage.
Gets it to about half health, but this Moonblast is going to be devastating. We'll have to see which Pokemon it goes into. It's the Kyogre slot. This will probably be a knockout.
It is a knockout. Connor now is going to be able to even the score here. Both of them have 3 Pokemon left, and the weather battle is in control of Connor's hands.
Yeah, Kenneth got that big knockout with Yveltal in the first turn, but it's kind of just hanging out in the field now. It doesn't match up very well. Xerneas actually going to have a hard time dealing with Groudon now, too, and Kenneth's going to have to bring something in. You don't want to bring the stack attack in if you don't have to. As much as it checks that Xerneas facing down a Groudon when you know that Xerneas can just use Protect is pretty difficult, and we see Salamence coming instead. Unfortunately, though, for Kenneth, we now have 2 Pokemon that aren't very good against Xerneas on the field. It helps against the Groudon, but again, how are you preventing this Xerneas from just whittling it away at your team? Salamence will be slower than Xerneas, even though it's naturally quicker because of the Trick Room. So Xerneas probably will have to protect here, but the Trick Room's starting to get stalled out.
Yeah, we only have a couple more turns left for that Trick Room, so Kenneth is going to want to take advantage of as many turns as possible that he is allowed to take. So, thinking about maybe the next moves here, if Connor does try to protect the Xerneas, then what might happen? But the Groudon's actually going to switch out. Instead, Tapu Lele coming to the field now. This could be huge.
Ooh, yeah. Kenneth actually has a chance here, though. We got a bunch of fast Pokemon left on Connor's side of the field. If he can take advantage of the end of his Trick Room, he's really got a good shot at this one.
Well, Salamence is going to a Mega Evolve here, reacting with that Salamence, and that means that Salamence is going to be really Mega powered. There's the Mega Evolve now. You've got Yveltal looking at a Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse will connect with the Tapu Lele, and it does a little bit over half. Double Edge now is actually going to find its way into the Xerneas, and that's a knockout!
Well, that's a huge knockout. I thought for sure Connor would protect the Xerneas, perhaps trying to get a little cheeky there, hoping that Salamence would attack the other Pokemon instead, knowing that Xerneas would be more likely to protect. Unfortunately for him, though, it doesn't happen there, and that's a big knockout. No longer has to worry about the Geomancy for the rest of this match, and it's probably going to be up to Groudon to try to finish up this match now.
Groudon will at least have control of the weather for Connor's side as long as we get to see those turns come to fruition here. But Kenneth does have a 1 Pokemon advantage going into this next one.
So we almost always see Tapu Lele holding a Choice Scarf. Because of that, it probably can't use Protect here. If Kenneth can target down this Tapu Lele, Groudon's going to have a really difficult time knocking out Salamence unless it knows a hidden power. We typically don't see Groudon learn this move, but if it was taught that'd be kind of the only way for Connor to get this back. Otherwise, this is looking like a really disadvantageous board state for him, and he's still got to try to find a way to knock out this fully healthy Yveltal.
knowing that we are preparing for that Trick Room to end, Stack Attack is going to come back to the field, maybe to try to set up another one when the field does revert back to normal. A Protect coming out from the Groudon on Connor's side is going to be able to keep it alive through any of these attacks. And Double Edge, though, actually going to find its way to the Tapu Lele, and that's another knockout. Really
smart play by Kenneth there. Understands, all right, Tapu Lele almost definitely holding a Choice Scarf. It can't use Protect. I'm going to pick up this knockout that I can get for free, and now he's got a 3 Pokemon versus 1 advantage against a Groudon.
Groudon is still able to do a lot here, but Connor actually opted to protect the Groudon instead of going for some amount of damage onto Stack Attack or Salamence on Kenneth's side of the field. So we are potentially going to have to see Connor either target down one of those Pokemon, but it's actually going to be Salamence moving first. Hyper Voice, Groudon's going to take the brunt of all of this damage, and it's getting taken so low here. Groudon able to fire back with an Earth Power into the Stack Attack slot, and Stack Attack does not take that. It's going to be another knockout, and that's going to be for Connor.
Yeah, so Connor gets another knockout on the board, but it's going to be for naught here. One of the reasons why Salamence is so great is because of how well it does against Groudon. Definitely not the pairing you want to see at the end of the match if you're Connor. The one nice thing for him there, if he didn't already know, he now knows for certain that Stack Attack is not holding a Shucca Berry, that berry that reduces the damage of super effective ground-type moves. So at least he'll know that moving forward into Game 2. But a really well-played game by Kenneth. That Trick Room on the first turn proving to be just a little bit too much for Connor. Connor never able to really catch that one back up, and even though he gets off that easy Geomancy, we're about to see Kenneth take the first game.
Yeah, that's going to be a first game after that knockout from Groudon. So Kenneth starting out this finals match in a big way.
Really impressive first game, and I was a little surprised to see Tapu Lele is Connor's final Pokemon there. Perhaps seeing a little difference between the Junior Division and the Masters Division. You know, Tapu Lele holding that Choice Scarf, most likely kind of a more aggressive, offensive sort of Pokemon. If that last Pokemon had been Incineroar instead, which I think is almost always what we would have seen in the Masters Division, you could have just switched in at the end there, perhaps use a Fake Out to help stall out the Trick Room for Xerneas, and then maybe we see the other player win the game. I think if I'm Connor, that's the sort of adjustment I want to make. You know, use the combination of Landorus and Incineroar to play a little bit more defensively if he has to. Obviously, he lost a Pokemon on turn 1 as well. That's not what you're looking for, but I think he can afford for that to happen. Landorus is probably not the most crucial Pokemon in this matchup, and you know it prevents him from having to worry about Groudon from getting hit by that Z move instead.
I actually really like the choice that you said there. Maybe bring the Incineroar and the Landorus as a nice pair, because you do have the U-turn potential on the Landorus that might help to try to change the board state a little bit. And then I also believe that that Intimidate, that is a very typical ability of Incineroar, can do a lot to be able to mitigate the damage that Kenneth was able to push out in that first game.
Yeah, I think he's got other ways to deal with the Yveltal, so kind of just playing defensively is the key. I assume Tapu Lele is coming in for Yveltal mostly, right? Like, all right, well, I have a speed advantage, I'll do a bunch of damage, but he's got Xerneas for that already. I think what he needs to do is kind of just use Landorus and Incineroar, or maybe even Gengar to help get those positive board states, pick up those knockouts, because if he just allows the Trick Room to go up again, Kenneth's going to win a match where he can outslug him once he has the speed advantage.
Well, we're going to be kicking off Game 2 now, and we see a little bit of an adjustment here coming out from Connor, as we do see that Incineroar was brought to this match, but Kenneth is making an interesting adjustment as well. Togedemaru on his side of the field.
Yeah, so both sides opting to switch things up. I do like the swap on Connor's end. Unfortunately, there's good and bad things about this league matchup, I guess. Again, I feel like from the concept of just trading attacks, Connor's in a better spot this time, but it's a little bit more difficult for him to try to take advantage of it. He does have to be concerned about just having his Landorus knocked out immediately by a Z-move again. On the positive side, he has 2 Pokemon that can do super effective damage to that Togedemaru, and he also kind of has to start thinking here, right? It's like, all right, well, I've seen a Pokemon I didn't see last game, so what's missing on the other side? You know, is it Salamence, is it Kyogre, or is it Stack Attack?
Well, Kenneth is going to protect the Togedemaru, bringing it back to its Pokeball and sending out Tapu Fini in its place. This is going to bring that Misty Surge to the field, and that will be able to do a little bit to stop some of the game plan that Connor has.
Connor perhaps expecting that Z-move, switching Xerneas in maybe to take a reduced damage from that attack.
We'll see what's about to happen here. Xerneas is going to take its friend's place. Fake Out, though, onto the Yveltal means that Yveltal's not going to be able to do a Z-move this turn.
Yeah, no bait then, but still better board position. Doesn't have to worry about the Z-move for now. Not likely that Yveltal's going to try that against either of these 2 Pokemon. But also interesting to see Tapu Fini coming in. So Kenneth opting to change 2 of his Pokemon despite winning Game 1. You'd expect that final Pokemon is Kyogre. So his board state, again, Yveltal's in a lot of trouble. Tapu Fini's very safe. But we see the Tailwind, so Kenneth once again opting to try to get control of the speed on the field.
Might have expected that Connor was going to make some sort of adjustment for the stack attack specifically, but Moonblast into the Yveltal, even though it's not powered up, is going to be a knockout for Connor.
The big knockout, a restricted Pokemon going down without really getting to use any attacks.
Yeah, and well, we're going to see a light screen here. That's an interesting choice to have on a Tapu Fini, not something that is super, common, but Tapu Fini seems to be tech to be a little bit more tanky for this match.
Yeah, it's a very defensively oriented Tapu Fini. It looks like that Snarl just absolutely shrugging it off. And we'll have to keep in mind what moves Tapu Fini winds up using. If this Tapu Fini doesn't have a bunch of attacks, then Snarl kind of doesn't really matter. It's not there to do damage. It's there to reduce the special attack of these Pokemon. With Togedemaru coming back in, I'm a little curious what Kenneth's plan here is. Maybe he'll go for a fake out on the Xerneas, perhaps, avoiding having to worry about any sort of Geomancy, but that would leave Incineroar free to attack the Togedemaru. Kind of at that point now where, with Yveltal going down without getting to use its Z-move, just trading attacks back and forth are to Connor's advantage, not Kenneth's.
Absolutely. Well, Xerneas isn't going to actually be able to do any damage for Connor this turn as it opts for a Protect, but Togedemaru now wants to try to reposition itself, so we'll go a U-turn into the Incineroar and for a decent amount of chip damage there.
If we see Kyogre come in, this could be a really fantastic play unless we see another Snarl. I guess even if we do, that was cute.
Well, it is going to be the Kyogre, so Kyogre coming in, it might have to take a Snarl from the opposing Incineroar, but it's going to Primal Evolve first. We'll bring that Rain back to the battlefield and see whether... It also helps to kind of create a Kyogre's menacing presence here on the board.
It could be really good. Kyogre still has that Tailwind to take advantage of, so it'll be quicker than Xerneas after this turn. And even more, even greater speed advantage now with the Icy Wind slowing down Incineroar at least.
Yeah, will not be able to connect with the Xerneas because it has protected itself against that. But are we going to see that speed drop? Yes, we are. So that Icy Wind is going to help a lot to just ensure that that Tailwind is going to be what it needs to be. But U-turn now actually coming up from Incineroar, not a Snarl. So it's going to go back to Connor's side of the field, and we might actually see that Landorus come back out. But it doesn't really want to. It doesn't really want to be against that Kyogre.
Yeah,
so Groudon.
Yeah, we're going to see Groudon. He's going to turn the Rain off, and that's a really good move. Nice play by Connor. I was a little curious what he was going to do with that Incineroar. I think what Kenneth was hoping for on his side was like, well, I'm going to send out Togedemaru. I'm going to show you that I can fake out your Xerneas or hit it with a Steel type attack. So instead of doing any of those things, I'm going to switch out, try to get an advantage with my Kyogre, maybe get a free attack on the next turn. Kind of reads that really well. Doesn't use a Flare Blitz that would have been negated by the Primordial Sea. Uses U-turn instead and kind of keeps his advantageous board position with Groudon out now to protect the field from any sort of water type attacks.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good position here for Connor. Now that Groudon is kind of exerting a lot of pressure onto the board state, Kenneth is going to have to cycle through his Pokemon a little bit here, and we're going to kick that off with Tapu Fini starting that rotation, Togedemaru coming back out, and hopefully going to keep some of these Pokemon in check on Connor's side. Kyogre, though, actually not going to switch out at all. Going to go for an Ice Beam to just get some damage onto Groudon. That was actually quite a bit there, doing half amount, and is going to have to take an Earth Power back, but it barely does anything to what Kyogre was able to do to that Groudon. Xerneas, though, now going for a Moonblast into the Kyogre, will double into it, but still not too much damage from either side.
That's pretty impressive, really seeing the effectiveness of the light screen that Tapu Fini used earlier.
Yeah.
Kyogre shrugging off two attacks from two of the most powerful Pokemon in this format, but his health is being whittled down. I wouldn't be surprised if a defensive Tapu Fini like this one knows Heal Pulse, so Kyogre could potentially get some of that health back, but Kenneth's going to need to maneuver quickly. Only has a little bit of that Tailwind left, and once that goes down, it could be a big advantage for the Xerneas, who's now going to have an easier time trying to get that Geomancy up potentially, though not too likely to try to do that in front of Togedemaru.
Kyogre did quite a bit of damage, though, to that Groudon, even with the Ice Beam. And a Fake Out onto Groudon is going to protect both of Kenneth's Pokemon for a while. But it is going to be Ice Beam actually into the Xerneas, and that doesn't do nearly as much. But, hey, wow, we're going to see a Geomancy now from that Xern.
Yeah, great play. I was kind of curious if maybe he'd just try to play defensively because of the threat of Togedemaru just attacking into the slot. But with Groudon there, threatening a knockout on Togedemaru, why not go for it? Xerneas is going to get this Geomancy off pretty much for free and be able to take advantage of it once the Tailwind expires. Connor's got a big advantage in the second game now, and he still has all of his Pokemon remaining to try to cycle in some support for Xerneas.
Ooh, and that's going to be the end of the Tailwind and the end of that Misty Terrain as well. So now Connor really has a significant advantage as that Xerneas is going to get a speed boost coming in from the Geomancy.
Yeah, the light screen is still in effect for one more turn, so that's the one thing really working for Kenneth's side, though Kyogre not going to be able to take advantage of it. Protecting here, we'll have to see what Togedemaru can do to flip the position of the board.
Well, that Dazzling Gleam, good read from Kenneth to know that that was going to be on its way. So Kyogre is at least going to be able to stick around. Togedemaru as well, because that's going to be not super effective. But Iron Head, can Xerneas survive through this? It can. So Groudon, though, going for an Earth Power to see if it can pick up the rest of the health on that Togedemaru, and that will be enough. Connor now takes a significant Pokemon advantage in this game, too.
Yeah, Togedemaru did its best, but it wasn't quite able to knock out that Xerneas, and now Kenneth's in trouble in the second game. Tapu Fini's going to come back in here, and while it has a bunch of cool defensive tricks, perhaps they could try to use their Heal Pulse on that Kyogre, I don't think that Connor's going to need to give him the chance. Xerneas has that Geomancy boost, can threaten a ton of damage into both these Pokemon. Groudon not really all that threatened either now. An Ice Beam could knock out Groudon from here, but I don't know if you can afford to ignore the Xerneas. Really great positioning for Connor, who again still has Incineroar and Landorus in the back should he need them.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the wire a little bit here. Kenneth does have a chance. Might be able to go for a second Protect onto the Kyogre. Is it going to make it? But it failed. Oh no, that means that Xerneas hitting this Dazzling Gleam is going to connect with both of Kenneth's Pokemon, and that's going to be a knockout onto the Kyogre and a decent chunk of damage onto that Tapu Fini. Groudon, though, using the Earth Power, now has only one option left on Kenneth's side of the field. It's not enough to knock it out. The Pinch Berry, though, interesting.
Tapu Fini doing its best. Yeah, I mean, kind of unfortunate for Kenneth there, where you're not really going to get anything out of this revealing information. Do get to see how bulky this Tapu Fini is, and the Icy Wind coming in. That is the right play by Kenneth. Obviously, it's not going to turn into too much for him here, but all I can kind of hope for is that maybe Kyogre gets a Chain of Protects off. Somehow Tapu Fini can slow the opposing Pokemon down enough that Kyogre can either attack safely, or at least he can get a Heal Pulse off into the Kyogre slot. Not going to happen in this game, and we see the forfeit coming in here. So this match is going to be tied at 1.
Yeah, well, what a way to kick off the finals, though. We are going to be going to a Game 3 and an amazing fight coming on between Kenneth and Connor. Connor made some excellent adjustments to that match, but really I think what kind of stole the show for him was taking out that Yveltal so early before it could use its Z-move.
Yeah, I think two things to keep in mind there for Kenneth's side of the field is he now has to try to make the adjustments. One is, yeah, I mean, he never got to use that Z-move. He had some chances and didn't go for it. Instead, he went for the Tailwind. It kind of makes sense. Once he got control of the speed in that first game, it was a huge advantage, but this time he wasn't really able to take advantage of it. We kind of saw the struggles of that matchup with Kyogre and Groudon, where since he didn't get control of the weather, it kind of didn't really matter that much that he had the Tailwind because he couldn't do any damage.
Right.
Another thing to keep in mind is the team comp that he had that time. Neither Togedemaru or Tapu Fini really going to deal a lot of damage, so it's very important for him to protect those legendary Pokemon. I think if I was Kenneth, I would change my Pokemon up a little bit here, try to get more Pokemon on my team that can actually deal some damage. Try to take the pressure off those restricted Pokemon because Connor has pretty good ways of shutting them down.
I think even with the one Pokemon adjustment that Connor made, Kenneth would have been safe to bring the same 4 that he brought in Game 1. May have to play around that just a little bit differently in terms of like the position of the board, but I'm hoping that Kenneth is going to kind of go back to the strategy that he had in Game 1. And it looks like that's exactly what it is. Yeah,
so we see the matchup here of the lead Pokemon Kenneth used to win Game 1 versus the Pokemon that Connor used to win Game 2. So kind of makes sense. Hey, you get that win, why not try it again? It's a little bit tougher for Kenneth this side. The reason why Connor has switched to this lead in the previous game is now Kenneth no longer has the option of just using the Z-move to knock out Landorus, while Stakataka gets that free Trick Room it got against Xerneas. Here, Incineroar could use Fake Out on Yveltal, allowing Landorus to knock out Stakataka, and then Kenneth's in trouble. So he's probably going to want to leave Yveltal in. It's not really threatened by anything, but Stakataka's going to need to switch out, and there it goes.
Yeah, it is going to return to Kenneth's hand, and now we actually see Salamence hitting the field. That was a Pokemon that Kenneth decided to leave at home in Game 2, but I believe that Mega Pressure is going to be a lot, and unfortunately isn't going to be able to take this Fake Out, so Yveltal is going to take that one. But it's actually a Z-move now coming in from Connor's side of the field.
It's a Ground-type Z-move, though, so regardless of which Pokemon this targets, it's not going to land its mark.
Wow, that was going to be an excellent read from Kenneth's side of the field. It's not going to affect that Salamence that switched in for that Stakataka.
So Kenneth reads that turn exactly perfectly. He understands why Connor led the Pokemon he did, allows him to waste that Z-move, and now it's going to be Connor who doesn't get to use or get any damage from a Z-move this game. Also, actually, pretty good positioning for Kenneth. Tailwind isn't going to help Stakataka at all with how slow it is, but you could set this up with either of these Pokemon, and Salamet's probably not in too much danger here. Yveltal threatening a potential Z move, and now Kenneth can do some damage.
Well, it's going to be that Hyper Voice to kick it off for Kenneth's turn on this time. Does a little bit more damage to Landorus than it is going to do for the Incineroar, but it does enough that Yveltal is going to be able to get that Tailwind up, and now Kenneth has a lot of speed behind him. Hidden Power, though, from this Landorus is going to hit into the Salamence, and oh, not enough to knock it out. Incineroar now going for a Snarl. Is this going to be enough chip damage to take out that Salamence? It is! Connor gets the knockout onto Kenneth's Pokemon, and that is its advantage to kick off this Game 3.
Well, that's a big knockout. You know, you normally think Landorus is pretty safe against these two Pokemon, especially with, or Salamence is pretty safe against these Pokemon, rather, especially with the Intimidate out, but it turns out not to be so much. And now Kenneth's in a tough spot. He kind of has to bring out Kyogre here. It doesn't make any sense to bring out Stakataka to take on Landorus even after that Intimidate, and now we're in the same position we were in last game. You know, Kenneth has that Tailwind up, but he has to worry about Groudon switching in and negating the Water-type attacks of the Kyogre. The important difference this time is that, unlike last game, he still has the option of using a Z-move, perhaps to try to call a Groudon switch in. On Connor's side, now you have to make a difficult decision. Do I switch Groudon in any way, try to guess which slot that Z-move might go into, or do I try to play a little more safely, use U-turn instead? The danger, of course, is that neither of these Pokemon are going to survive a Water-type attack should Kyogre get one off, so it's tough to play too safely. Connor doesn't want to wind up in a situation where he only has two Pokemon left, and Kenneth can switch around to ensure control of the weather for the rest of the game. Whichever player goes down to two Pokemon here first, thus gaining control of the weather for the rest of the match, is probably going to be the one that loses. It's key to at least maintain three Pokemon so you can switch Kyogre and Groudon in and out.
Well, we're going to at least be able to see a switch in from Kenneth's side. Stakataka now coming in because it doesn't have the same pressures on that side of the field, but it is going to be Incineroar now switching out. And maybe this is going to be for that Yveltal read. Groudon is going to reset the weather here. Kyogre, what did Kenneth decide to do with it? Is it going to be a water move? Is it going to be the Ice Beam that we've seen previously on that Kyogre? Time will tell.
And Ice Beam would be enough to knock out Landorus, and we do see with the switch to Stakataka, not even trying to go for the Z move. Connor has a potential here to maybe get the positioning, but it is the Ice Beam. Which Pokemon will it hit?
It's going to be the Landorus. That is going to do enough to be able to knock it out. Super effective there on the Landorus, and now we have an even up of the Pokemon that are left.
It's a nice knockout for Kenneth, but I'm a little puzzled by the board state that he's wound up with here. It's a weird one. You don't see Xerneas switching into Stakataka very often, but it actually makes a lot of sense here. Even with the Tailwind, Stakataka is going to be the slowest Pokemon on the field, and with the control of the weather, it's pretty tough for Kenneth to really do anything to stop Groudon from targeting Stakataka, allowing Xerneas to get that Geomancy off. Really nice spot. Even though Kenneth scored that knockout there, I'm not sure giving the free switch to Connor actually helped him, though it's likely Landorus is going to use U-turn and get that switch anyway.
Well, we're going to have to see a forced switch on Kenneth's side, not with the U-turn equipped to Stakataka. So, we will have the Yveltal coming back out, and that's going to be a little bit of an interesting choice there, knowing that Xerneas is on the field.
Kind of has no choice. He's running out of options. He's going to dodge this Earth Power.
Yeah,
so that's a nice play, but there's
read.
Nothing he can do to stop this Geomancy, and Connor's suddenly looking like he's got this one under wraps.
Time will tell, though, because in Pokemon, anything is possible, having some moves miss or having some, random generation here on your side. But Geomancy will be able to go off this turn without a hitch because the Power Herb that is equipped to that Xerneas, and Kenneth's going to have to prepare himself for some of this damage that Xerneas can do.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what he does here. He still has the option of that Z move, but with Xerneas resisting it, having the boosted special defense from Geomancy, he's not going to take very much damage. Xerneas can kind of just go on the offense here. I guess on Kenneth's side, you have got to find a way to knock out that Groudon. I don't think that Xerneas is going to allow that to happen, but if you could somehow get rid of Groudon, then Stakataka could deal with Xerneas. But it's going to be really clever to find an opportunity for that. Connor's done a great job to, again, kind of take advantage of that Tailwind by bringing Groudon in second, controlling the board.
Groudon is going to protect, hopefully to avoid taking an Ice Beam from the Kyogre or this Z-move here. Z-move now coming out from Kenneth's side, and it's going to be able to connect with either of the Pokemon that are on the field. But is it going to be enough to get a key knockout for Kenneth to get him a better position in this game? Black Hole Eclipse from the Yveltal, it will have a decent target on either side, but it is going to be the Groudon that just protected, so some of that damage from this Black Hole is going to get mitigated here, but it is enough. Wow, so that's going to be Connor's Groudon sticking around, but this Dazzling Gleam will fire back for that Yveltal, and a critical hit onto the Kyogre is going to take away more damage than Kenneth was prepared for.
Oh, it's so much damage. The Ice Beam here going to hit Xerneas. Unless he gets a critical hit, that's probably not going to do all that much. And yeah, wow, Xerneas takes that like a champ, and Connor now just 2 knockouts away from winning the tournament.
2 knockouts. We do have Stakataka, and with the speed that we have seen these Pokemon really play with, it's going to be really important for Kenneth to try to set up Trick Room to give him an advantage.
I just don't think there's any way. I mean, he made the right play in the last turn. You've got to go for that Z move. Groudon has to get knocked out there to take this game, but this could be check and mate for Connor. You know, Groudon just used the ground type move onto Stakataka, Xerneas attack Kyogre, and I just don't know what you do for Kenneth. A really well played match by him. You know, he was very close, but I think Connor's probably got this one.
Well, this might be the very last one here. Xerneas going for a Dazzling Gleam. The Dazzling Gleam is going to pick up the knockout onto Kyogre, and you can see the handshake on stage. Seems to me that these players know who the champion is going to be of this match. Connor, congratulations for becoming the Junior North American International Champion.
A really excellent match, and you know, he went down that first game, but he didn't let it phase him. You know, you gotta appreciate the back